The Epoch of Incredulity.
You can begin whenever you guys are ready.
Yeah, so the Washington Post reported early this afternoon that a floor vote for DC statehood will be on the floor of the House of Representatives on June 26th. Now, this is the first time that either chamber of Congress has voted or had a floor vote on whether or not to make DC a state since 1993, in which it failed 277 to 135 or something like that, with only 60% of Democrats voting in favor of it. Even if it passes the House, it's not going to go anywhere. But it is still, I think it's still a good thing that it's even happening in the first place, because it is like a marker. It serves many purposes: partisan, political, ideological, just basic, utility of having people being able to have some degree of control over their own lives. Because right now, as a result of not being a state, DC doesn't have full control over its budget, because Congress can override DC any budget changes the city of Washington, D.C. makes for itself, because Congress has an override, because they're not actually a city.
Yeah, that, and also that they don't get full representation in the House and Senate, which is just BS. Washington, D.C. has more people in it than Wyoming, and
Yes.
Wyoming has a bigger say in the national level politics. The same is true of Puerto Rico. However,
Actually, Wyoming's population is half that of DC's.
Yeah, that's the level of insane. But Wyoming gets 2 people represented in the Senate, and Washington, D.C. gets 1 non-voting person.
Yes.
Which is insane. Like, beyond insane.
What is the population of DC and what is the population of Wyoming?
DC is about around where Boston is, about 700,000 people. And Wyoming has a population of 376,000, or 375,999, and Liz Cheney, the daughter of Dick Cheney, who is currently their lone representative in the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
Who's bringing it to the floor? Who's sponsoring the bill?
I think it might be Steny Hoyer of all people, which is I think this is the result of him having a vigorous campaign challenge by Michaela Wilkes, because he opposed DC statehood for 39 years, and now he's putting it on the floor in about a week and a half. So I think this is the result of him being pushed left by a primary challenge. Sure, she only got 17% of the vote, but it was the first real challenge he's had in decades.
Do you think there's any hope for this? I mean, because I agree it would happen. I've always felt that DC should have its own statehood.
Absolutely. Plus, there's the political benefit. Well, I mean, it's not going to happen because of it might get passed through the House. It might, even though it failed the last time they tried 93. It might actually get through this time through the House, but there's no fucking way it's getting through the Senate, because Mitch McConnell has explicitly said that it's not DC statehood will never get through the Senate so long as he is the Senate Majority Leader, despite the fact that there are 40 senators already on board with this, with making DC a state. It's never happening because that gives the Democrats 2 seats in the Senate. Democrats right now, they are, Republicans have a net majority of like 4. They're up 53-47. And Democrats are already most likely going to pick up a net gain of 2. So if they make DC a state, there's a good chance the Democrats end up with a Senate majority come January. So there's no way in fucking hell that's happening, because DC statehood gives the Democrats 2 Senate seats and another seat in the House. So that's not happening. But it's good as like a goal marker. It's kind of like how putting like the Green New Deal on the floor. It's not going to get anywhere in a Republican-controlled Senate, but it's good to have it there as like for the bare sake of messaging, like this is where we stand.
Yeah, and I think it does make a big statement to say, hey, they're taxed representation.
Yeah.
This is the United States. And if you're denying DC statehood by technicalities, you're being ridiculous. we actually believe in democracy, not democracy with red lines that keep minorities away.
But do we really, as a country, believe in democracy? I mean, we've allowed the Electoral College to exist, which only existed because it was necessary to keep this to protect the political clout of the slave-owning states, because 2/3 of their populations were enslaved at the time and therefore considered property. So our commitment to democracy has always been kind of flaky at best, to put it generously. But I get what you're saying.
Democracy has never meant everyone the way that it should. I'll agree with
Yes.
that. I don't think that most people understand the background of the Electoral College. I don't think most people understand how all of this democracy of some people got us here. And I don't think that unless you make the argument that it matters now, not just for history, there is a very, very strong conservative in the sense of tradition, don't break things that work, line of reasoning in the United States. And you have to make the argument that this is not democracy, that this is not working in order to move things forward.
I absolutely agree.
Electoral College doesn't quite capture how random and bureaucratic as much as Puerto Rico is not a state and Washington, D.C. is not a state. And you can make arguments about Puerto Rico because whether they want to be a state is less clear. Washington, D.C. wants to be a state.
Oh, they've wanted statehood for decades. But I totally agree with you. And I also agree with you on the obscurity. Not all of us were history majors like me. So, like, not all of us spent, like, years of our lives studying this like, somewhat obscure shit that, like, the average person just either doesn't know or doesn't care about, which I understand. I'm definitely, we're definitely the outliers. Not all of us, we're not representative of the whole, so to speak. But I do think it is important to make the argument for now, because, like, if not now, when? When the fuck are we ever going to do this? We're going to keep kicking it down the road. It's never going to get done. And the argument for Puerto Rico, I think it can be made that they should be allowed either statehood or independence, because even though I think for now statehood would be better for them, like, fiscally, so we can help get them, like, off their, as a state, they'd be entitled to, like, federal relief aid to help them repair, like, because the fact that we've never actually helped them, Puerto Rico got off their feet from Hurricane Maria, and they were already in deep shit financially before that because of the fact that they are still a colony. They were, the Obama administration in 2015 put them under basically the feudal, basically under like austerity, but like with a feudalistic twist of putting Puerto Rico basically at the whims of this fiscal austerity board that is completely unelected and has complete say over the fiscal matters of Puerto Rico, because they were in so much debt and they aren't entitled to the federal relief aid that states are allowed. And so they're in billions and billions of dollars of debt, and now Obama puts them at the whims of this austerity board, and then Maria happens. So there's decades of shit that Puerto Rico is still recovering from. So it would be better for them to become a state. And then after they're finally back on their feet, finally, after all this shit,
independence.
then they should be allowed independence. Because it's not really ethical to, like, okay, you have independence now, but like 30% of the population still doesn't have access to electricity, because that's just basically, that honestly, I'd find that to be even more cruel than like not doing anything. I think that would be arguably even more cruel. Here's your independence, but we're not going to help you with any of the other things we have caused you anyways.
I mean, nothing about granting independence means that we can't grant freedom. Like can't grant them money too.
Yeah.
But the fact that those are tied together is ridiculous and stupid.
It is.
And isn't going to help things going forward. It may technically be that, but like, I'm not a fan of these weird bureaucratic arrangements, and we deserve to be giving aid more to some places than others in order to clean up our own messes. Puerto Rico is one of those places.
I mean, this isn't a country in which 16%, the United Nations estimates that 16% of the American population is below the poverty line. So clearly, it's we do need to be helping some places more than others, which, like, I think the way the Medicaid works is fucking insane. In which here each state gets a lump sum of money. It might not actually be like as much money as you require because every state is different. But like, here you go, come bother us next year. Fuck off until then.
We were
Yep.
at one point talking about the universality of democracy, and it reminded me of the Lenin quote, "It is natural for a liberal to speak of democracy in general, but a Marxist will never forget to ask, for what class?"
That's a good one. Of course, Lenin gets quoted.
Well, he's not wrong.
I know he's not. That's why I said that's a good one.
For the home-owning class that doesn't have to move around, at least, I guess some renters don't have to move that often too, that happens to live in the wider states.
I have to say, if I'm being completely honest, I have very, very little sympathy. It's like almost like it's difficult to conceal like how much contempt I have at this point for like the homeowning class. For their complaints about like, oh, this and that, like, oh, this inconvenience is happening to us, but like, you guys are all about to be forced out of your homes because of a looming rent crisis and also mass homelessness crisis. But like, go get a housing deposit is like the answer we hear from the homeowning class. It's poverty for the it's, as I think MLK said, it's we're living in a society where it's socialism for the rich and rugged individualism for the poor.
Indeed.
And you could say that as well as for democracy, because for places like DC and Puerto Rico, it's the rugged individualism of go figure it out yourself, whereas we have socialism for the richer, wider states like our own here in Massachusetts. Massachusetts has definitely significant structural advantages within the system that DC can never hope to match. Like, DC doesn't have control over its budget.
Oh, really? Wow. Who controls it? Is it the federal government?
The Congress does.
Oh.
The Congress can override the District of Columbia. So the District of Columbia can, in theory, nominally, it has control over its budget. But if it does something with its budget that the Congress does not like, Congress can override the District of Columbia.
You know, like safe injection sites that would save hundreds of people a year.
Yeah, like that. That got poo-pooed 2 years ago because Congress wasn't having it. How dare you not give more money to the police department? How dare you try to do safe injection sites?
And of course, DC recently had the incident with the protests and the protesters having to stay in that house overnight.
And this is actually a crisis. This is actually a problem caused by the lack of statehood because they are actually a district, because of the way originally DC was set up to be like a federal district, and it was supposed to only cover like the federal buildings, which is actually what the new bill proposes, that like DC be reduced, the federal seat of government be reduced to like the 2-mile enclave of just like the White House, Capitol Hill, the Supreme Court, and the federal buildings. But the way it's worked out is that because DC is a district, there is nothing to prevent National Guard from other states from coming into DC or the federalizing of the local police. There's nothing to prevent that because they are not a state. That is why that happened, because DC doesn't have any authority to tell the National Guard from, say, Maryland to go fuck off. They aren't a state. So therefore, Maryland can just do what it wants in terms of sending its National Guard into the city.
Is there someone trying to run against Mitch McConnell right now?
Yes, Charles Booker and Amy McGrath.
Yes.
Sanders endorsed Booker, and the Democratic machine is trying its best to get McGrath in because she's a shitty Democrat, and I just want to dump hunks of money in there.
What are their differences?
She's a war criminal, basically, and
fantastic!
She has no
like the Democrats' life.
The answer.
Actually, she has less than that. She would have been very successful if she tried her hand in politics in, say, the early to mid '90s, where politicians who were all substance and style, but I mean, like all style but literally no substance, were very successful. I love Bill Clinton, for example, but like that time has passed. She's like Pete Buttigieg in that regard, where she's a generation too late. We've moved past the era of substance without style.
What's her name again?
Amy McGrath.
Society has moved past the need for Amy McGrath.
She's a failed House candidate from last cycle. The only reason that Schumer wants her is she describes herself as a pro-Trump Democrat.
The fuck does that mean?
She criticizes McConnell on abortion from the right the first week of her campaign.
What was the criticism?
That he wasn't conciliatory towards Brett Kavanaugh enough. He was too hard on Brett Kavanaugh. And this is like the fourth day of her campaign. On the first day, she affirms the right to choose, and 3 days later, she comes out and is like, Mitch McConnell was too hard on Brett Kavanaugh.
Fuck.
There's no way.
This is the kind of Democrat you can expect from
These are fucking Democrats, people. These are the mainstream Democrats.
Yep.
That's also just heartbreaking. Like, they didn't need Kavanaugh to make that. Like, could you be any more obvious that you don't care about women? Actually?
Yeah, I know. It's insane. This is what passes for like an establishment Democrat. I think she's supposed to be like, oh, she's a distraction. She'll like make McConnell spend lots of money on his own race that won't be spent elsewhere. But it's really more like a distraction rather than like an actual attempt at winning. Whereas Booker's actually state rep. He's very popular in Kentucky. He's gotten like the local Democratic Party has gotten around him. He's gotten endorsements from Bernie Sanders, AOC, and the like. The left has gotten around him. And, like, if Booker pulls off this primary win, his chances of beating McConnell are, like, not great. Because, like, McConnell has demonstrated in the past that, like, being really, really unpopular is not a problem for him because he has a fuck ton of money. Having fuck tons of money
doesn't he have an approval rating in, like, the 30s or something?
20s. His approval rating in Kentucky is like 22%.
Did he win an election on that approval rating?
Yes, the last three, actually. Kentucky. He has been in office since 1987. And the last time he was up for re-election, his approval rating was about 34. And he was being challenged. His Democratic nominee was actually a statewide elected official, and she only got 40% of the votes, despite his approval rating being at like 34%.
So what does he
do?
So
like some of this is just name recognition, that people will vote for the names that they know. And we haven't gotten the social fabric that we need in order to raise people up properly.
No, I meant like 34% in his home state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's name recognition for his home state.
So does he just like use all his money to just like flood? Like,
yeah, that, and he'll do things for his state, like, you know, when election season's starting up, like, oh, we'll do a thing for like the minors. It's like, oh, see, I'm providing for you guys. See you in 6 years.
The minors, as in like the people who mine, or like,
yeah, because Kentucky's a coal mining state.
Okay.
No, for 12-year-olds.
Okay, yes.
Because Kentucky's still coal country. There's still a lot of Eastern Kentucky is still very much mining country. I mean, that's why Andy Bashar won his governor's race last year, is because he got like the mine workers, like he got the union workers in like Eastern Kentucky to like come out and vote for him, because his platform was like jobs, like unions, healthcare, and like good wages. So it's possible to win in Kentucky, but like I don't think his odds are that great.
Okay.
Possible.
But Swing Left does have Kentucky setups. Like this is a touchable raise.
Possible. I'm not saying it's like it's not going to happen. It's just that I'm willing to suspend my disbelief. I'm willing to be convinced that it's possible for Booker to win, but I'm not saying it's impossible either.
Well, the advantage that McConnell has is that he can just inflate his neck pouch.
Yes.
I think the actual advantage here is that it's really hard to campaign across a state. And that's what needs to happen without knocking any doors. and with
Oh,
a population that has such little connection to each other.
Just hold a mass Zoom call where it's like kind of like one of those captive audience meetings that like employers have when they're trying to like union bust, but like having the whole state as like a captive audience, but like a Zoom call where you're trying to convince people to vote for you.
That doesn't work. If you want to convince people to vote to you, you listen to them. You can't yell at them. I wish you could.
No,
I
I
really wish
was
you could.
being funny.
I mean, that's what the Republicans do, but
Also, I don't think any one person is that interesting to be able to hold the attention of that many people for that much time.
certainly not Mitch McConnell.
No, even though I would like to see him inflate his neck pouch. I would like to see
What
that.
they should do is they should do that thing that they let the people call into the LA, like the council, and just like bitch at them. Should just let
That's awesome.
they should just let people bitch at Mitch McConnell over Zoom.
Okay, so I was on a Zoom call for Mike Connolly's 40th birthday,
Yeah.
and apparently Nika had given him a bar of soap, which he thought was chocolate, that he took a bite out of. And I would totally have them talk back and forth for like way longer than the 15 minutes spent on this bar of soap.
I could see that, like Nika Logardo and like Mike talking about a bar of soap for 20 minutes. I could see that.
Was
It's very
brilliant.
story.
There are definitely people who can hold my attention for a full hour on a Zoom call, just being themselves. And just like, whoa, the world is better now.
No, I mean like I don't doubt that people can hold my attention. I'm talking about like mass numbers of people.
Mike Connolly could do that though. Oh, now we're just like blowing smoke up Mike Connolly.
Because like I've watched an hour and a half long Zoom call before.
We're totally blowing smoke at Mike Connolly, but like there is sort of people that you just kind of want to be. Like I don't like him. I want to be him. Like
Yeah, I know what you mean.
not in the sense that I want to be like actually him. I just want to be like that person.
So
Who can eat a bar of soap and talk about it for 20 minutes?
DC
Right.
could fucking get out Mitch McConnell and be like Mike Connolly. Those are the three lessons that we want you to take away from this short discussion we're having.
Definitely.
So if we were to talk to Charles Booker, we would instruct him to go on YouTube and eat a bar of soap and then talk to someone for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then put it on the internet. Get yourself a senator who can eat some soap and then talk to you for a half hour.
Yeah. That is the ideal that we are striving towards.
I wonder if we can get Ed Markey to do that.
Oh.
Markey was on that call and did not talk about this bar of soap that Mike Connolly thought was chocolate. Like, did not engage with this at all. And it was really sad, despite him getting so much better at speaking. It's just kind of exciting.
I honestly could listen to Markey talk for like an hour because like we're actually Markey and I are from neighboring towns and like he sounds like someone he sounds like the way he talks, like his accent is literally the same accent that everybody else in my dad's family has. It's like sounds like just another person at a family event. I could listen to him like read an audiobook and it'd be entertaining. Just listening to the accents would be enough for me. We have 40 sponsors, and that's all we need.
Bro, that's how we should we gotta run somebody against Charlie Baker that is hardcore Bostonian. Like,
Absolutely.
and
think
fucking
that's the
Walsh.
strategy.
God.
And
Yeah.
Walsh's accent doesn't really do it for me.
That's another
there's
reason
also-
to vote him out.
So in 2017, I was one of the representatives to go to the Democratic Party convention in Massachusetts, which set the platform. And I was like super pumped. I was doing this with OR. I had gotten my resolution through things to like try and make the party platform not suck. And apparently they were completely not prepared for getting like 40 resolution things in. And there was like 6 bylaws and there was some actual resolution. And then there was some other stuff. So I was just like, these are a set of laws which require the least signatures. Anyway, so they get to like noon, and then instead of going, oh shit, we still haven't finished printing, they go, well, we'll just send in more speakers. So Ed Markey talks for like an hour, which was not apparently like thing. And then they just get like lower and lower in the bucket. They're like, okay, here's the head of the Young Democrats in Worcester. Here is their, and none of these speeches are like very good, but they're all good speakers. But it gets to like 3:30 and like, we're like, no one's voting on anything because they're still putting speaker after speaker up there. And okay, this is my impression of Markey was like, damn it, he is boring and slow, and I did not at all know that he was being told to waste time. Then we voted on like 6 things, tabled everything else. It was sent to committee and never reported on anywhere that I could find ever again. And that is the Democratic Party. Thank you. I do not know why on earth you held it up like that doing that. If Markey's talking for an hour, something else is going wrong.
Honestly, the Boston City Council does the same thing. They will table the most important issues, and then they go to some black box committee, and you never fucking hear about it again.
Well, I meant I could listen to him narrate an audiobook, not obviously nothing important. Obviously, I don't want to listen to him talk about something important. But if it's like for my own amusement and it's not really harming anybody, like I don't know, derailing a state convention, then like fine, let him talk. It would be amusing for me at least.
But it's better than Joe Kennedy.
Don't even get me started.
Yes, it is.
Don't even.
The only good thing about that is that there's someone good running in his district.
And even then, her chances are not ideal.
Who's running?
You're talking about Hussein?
Yeah.
Yeah, Hassan. Hassan Lecky. Right. There we go. Joe and I are like in.
We're in sync.
Let's
I don't mean to be dour, but like I don't like her chances.
No, that sucks. She's good.
I mean, she's great, and that's what bums me out is because she's great. But like, my hope is that she can win by like the strategy I hoped Bernie would have been able to win by, which is where like there's like so many other candidates that she's able to just get like a plurality of the votes because there's like I forget how many, but there's like a clown car of other people running in that district, so she can get like maybe 25% of the vote in like a 10-person race. That might be enough to scrape by, but I think that's like her only shot.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that she's so much better than the other people who have more money than she does.
I know, that's why it depresses me. Because she's awesome. I was at the electoral candidate forum we had with Ihsan on Friday, and she was awesome.
I was
she had my full attention for like a solid hour.
Yeah, no, she's great. I was at an engagement back before the pandemic when you could actually go out, and yeah, she's incredible, and that is making me upset to hear this.
Yeah, I talked to her at the DSA watch party on Super Tuesday, and she was great. This is why it depresses me that like that's why I feel so dour about this. That like the pessimist in me does not think she has like great chances because like she's freaking fantastic.
Yeah, she was wicked cool.
She's got good policies and she's wicked cool.
Wicked smart.
Yeah. But like, if we're gonna end some of the problems, it's not like I think the person with the most money is Alan Kaze, who looks pretty white. Don't know how he identifies, but looks pretty white.
I don't know how, but they somehow bought his campaign. Somehow bought my email list because somehow I've ended up on their list. I don't know how, but somehow they started sending me emails.
Somehow I'm on Kennedy's list. I'm kind of annoyed.
I got so annoyed when they somehow got my name onto Biden's list that I literally changed my party registration out of annoyance.
That's what happened if you were on Bernie's list. Now you're on Biden's. I get a fucking email from Biden like every day.
Oh,
I got so frustrated. I literally changed my party registration.
Are you green now?
No, I'm an independent.
That's not helpful. Then you can't vote in the primary as well, can you?
No, in Massachusetts, Democrats and independents are allowed to vote the Democratic primary.
Got it. Sorry. Okay.
The Republicans still have a closed primary. So only Republicans are allowed to vote in the Republican primary, but in the Democratic primary, independents are allowed to vote.
way to be inclusive.
That kind of works better, though, really, for the Republican Party. I mean, in the context, because, like, nobody's going to, like, there's not going to be, like, a Republican enter movement in the way there was, like, a Dem enter movement.
For all of the critiques that anybody could have of the Republican Party, I have to give them credit for being able to mobilize around absolutely bullshit issues. But they can always somehow form a coalition within that party.
Well, that's because they understand, like, that everybody, they understand how to actually have a big tent party instead of, like, let's have, like, the David Frums of the world, like the basically the center right people, and then we're stuck with, like, the left, and we're going to call it a big tent. They actually have, like, ideological, fracture points, but they know how to get around those.
Yeah.
They understand how to get to a common goal.
Yeah, they have the racists, and they have the anti-abortion people, and
The
they
sexists.
have
And the Paul Ryans of the world.
and the sexists. I mean, it's like a
Libertarian
big happy
weirdos.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't forget the the Paul Ryan style libertarian weirdos who are openly sociopathic to a disturbing degree. You've got at least 30, 40 members of the House Republican Party who are openly sociopathic without any qualms about how will it look if I act like a complete sociopath in public? No worries about that at all, because they're probably well past that point.
Nobody cares.
Yeah, but then again, we have Steny Hoyer,
Yeah.
Joe Manchin,
We have Joe Biden, who's literally a segregationist sexual
Rahm
predator.
Emanuel.
God damn.
Actually,
Fuck.
what's more disturbing is you have Democrats like my grandpa, and I mentioned Tara Reid last night, and he goes, "Oh, just because she said it doesn't mean it actually happens." And I'm like, Jesus Christ.
That's heartbreaking.
It actually kind of a part of me died a little bit. It's bad enough that he opposes literally any. It's bad enough the brain worms are so deeply burrowed that he doesn't care about literally any other issue that it would affect anybody that isn't him. Completely opposed to rent control. Now this, it's just depressing to find that someone you actually like in your family is got the brain worms. Very heartbreaking thing.
So y'all, that's electoral politics.
Yeah. The brain worms.
I kind of feel like that was the clip.
No, yeah, that was pretty good.
I feel like that was a natural place for the conversation to end.
Yeah, brain worms.
Brainworms, and then it's all just awkwardly laughing. You want me
How
to?
depressing my family is.
Yeah.
That's what we can fucking call it. We can call it
It could be a running theme of the show. Is Joe's family?
That would work because I'm still trying to cope with the fact that from an ideological standpoint, I am a extreme departure from the rest of my family, and I'm still trying to find ways to cope with that because somehow my grandparents were landlords. My parents were
Your parents are landlords?
My grandparents were landlords in the 60s.
Oh,
And
okay.
2 generations later, you have me. That's a significant departure from an ideological standpoint.
Yeah. All right. That was the Epoch of Incredulity. Is that what it's called? I think so. Yeah. Okay.
I love that you're forgetting the name of the show, even though you came up with this.
Hold on.
We're stopping it now.
Hey, wait.
You
No,
watched-
don't yet. We have to do the. First off, you got to pronounce it better because it
Epoch of
fucking
Incredulity.
Epoch of
Epoch.
Incredulity.
the.
That's
What?
how you fucking-
That's
This
how
has
epic is
been-
pronounced.
It's not.
The epoch of incredulity.
Oh, I froze. This
Epoch
has
of
been
Incredulity.
Epoch.
Oh my god.
Epoch.
We're not doing Ewoks. We're not doing Ewoks.
I said epoch.
Oh shit, bro!
I said epoch.
This has been the Epoch of Incredulity.